Hi everybody, this is Joe Biden. I delivered a report to President Obama laying out how far we've come since he put me in charge of the cancer moonshot. That was back in January. And to lay out a real vision for where we need to go in the immediate future, to do in 5 years what otherwise would take 10, to inject a real sense of urgency into the fight against cancer, and to change the culture and reimagine our system in order to be able to win. You know, when President Nixon declared a war on cancer in 1971, he had no army, he had no resources, and no clear strategy. But after 45 years of progress, funding research, training scientists and physicians, and treating millions of patients, we now have an army. And we have tools, powerful tools. And with the moonshot, we now have a clear strategy for the road ahead. It matters, folks, because there's a consensus now that we're at an inflection point with science, medicine, technology, all advancing faster than ever and offering real promise. But we can't play by the rules of 1971 when we didn't have this working for us.
Sweet potatoes contain fiber, vitamin A and calcium. But the way that scientists think they can make them even more healthful is literally shocking. Researchers found that giving a jolt of electricity to sweet potatoes increased the level of antioxidants known as polyphenols by 60%. The investigators placed sweet potatoes in a solution of sodium chloride. They found that 0.2 amps of direct current gave the potatoes nearly 1.5 times more antioxidants than potatoes that weren't shocked. The research was presented at the National Meeting of the American Chemical Society. It seems that the electric zap stressed the potatoes into producing more polyphenols as a protective mechanism. And the treatment did not sacrifice flavor. Previous research has shown that electrically supercharging white potatoes increases antioxidant levels. So perhaps it's only a matter of time before other fruits and vegetables get shock-counted therapy to restart.
To enjoy a harmonious union with someone, we should ensure that we have plenty of sources of excitement, reassurance, and stimulation outside of them. When we hit problems, we should be able to lean on other supports. The demand that another person compensate us for all that's alarming, wearing, or deficient in our lives is a mechanism for systematically destroying any relationship. Our conflicts and disappointments will at once feel more manageable when we stop asking our partner to function always as our long-lost other half. The more we can survive without a relationship, the greater will be that relationship's chances of survival and fulfillment. We will truly give love a chance when we stop believing that it can single-handedly save us.
There's no doubt that we have more consumer choices today than ever before. We all think we're good at making choices. Some of us even enjoy making them. And you would think that with all these consumer choices that people would be spending more money because they can get exactly what they want. Well, actually, that's not always the case. Let me tell you about one study that has produced results about this that are really quite counterintuitive. An experiment was done in an upmarket specialty grocery store in the U.S., where a tasting booth was set up, first offering consumers 24 different varieties of jam to try, and then at another time, they offered 6 varieties. Now, when there were more varieties, more customers stopped to try than when there were only 6. But only about 3% of them actually went ahead and selected a product to buy. This is where it's interesting. When there were just 6 varieties, fewer people stopped to try, but what the researchers noticed, and what they didn't expect, was that 30% of them bought a jar of jam. What does this show? Well, it shows that we have choice overload, that up to a point, choice is good, but beyond that, it overwhelms consumers.
Hall of Famer Ted Williams once famously commented that hitting a baseball is the hardest thing to do in sports. Although Williams, a .344 career hitter, made it look easy, he had a point. Hitting a round ball with a round bat squarely is difficult. It's also an excellent example of some very entertaining applied physics. No surprise then that professional baseball players are turning to science to improve their multi-million-dollar strokes. Some approaches focus on the neuroscience of hitting, the deep internal brain mechanisms behind seeing the pitch and reacting to it. But for more info about the swing itself, a sports tech company called Zepp Labs makes a sensor that can help break down those mechanics. The sensor sits in the knob of the company's so-called smart bat and uses 2 accelerometers and a 3-axis gyroscope to measure bat speed, hand speed, attack angle, and other factors. The sensor, which weighs only about 8 grams, sends this info to a smartphone app via Bluetooth. The app can then use this data to have an on-screen avatar reenact the swing, in the hope that the batter can pick up some details and make the necessary adjustments. Zepp sensors can also be fitted to golf clubs and tennis rackets. Never one to mince words, Ted Williams also once said that pitchers were, quote-unquote, the stupidest people alive. Maybe somebody can come up with a smart baseball to help them. Against any Ted Williamses out there, anyway.
Classical music competitions pit performers against each other. Obviously, the most important criterion for judges is sound. But that assumption needs a new hearing, because a player's passion may be the best predictor of victory. In a new study, nearly 200 novices had to choose the winners of 10 classical music competitions. Some heard a music clip of the top 3 performances. Others saw a video with sound, still others watched a silent video. And the participants were more likely to choose the winner if they watched the silent video in all 10 of the competitions. Then professional musicians gave it a try. These judges also only reliably selected the winners from the silent video. Musicians selected the winner more frequently, even when all they saw was an outline of the motion of the performers. The researchers say the findings show that novices and experts make quick judgments about musical performances based on visual cues conveying involvement and passion. The study was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. So next time you see a live concert, don't close your eyes to focus on the music. You might be missing the most important part.
A team of researchers finds that shelling out for services that save time can bring greater feelings of life satisfaction than, say, simply buying more stuff. The results appear in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. It's safe to say that most of us often feel crunched for time. So much so that we're experiencing what Ashley Whillans of the Harvard Business School, the lead author of the study, describes as a time famine. And like any famine, this chronic lack of time takes its toll on our health.
When we feel like our to-do lists are longer than the hours that we have time in the day to complete them, we can feel as if our life is spiraling out of control, thereby undermining our personal well-being.
Well, if time is money, Whillans and her team wondered whether money that's used to buy time could offer some relief, like paying someone else to clean the house, mow the lawn, or deliver the groceries.
Noises are defined as disagreeable sounds, but this suggests that they are no more than an annoyance, something to be put up with. There is increasing evidence that noise, on the scale that people who live in big cities have to deal with, is dangerous and can give rise to serious health and social problems, some of which, such as its effects on people's behaviour and anger levels, you might not have thought were caused by noise and are health concerns. There is, of course, the almost constant noise of traffic, though this isn't a particularly modern problem. In ancient Rome, there were rules to minimise the noise made by the iron wheels of wagons, which battered the stones on the pavement, causing disruption of sleep. Traffic noise is one of the health hazards, as it can lead to other problems like noise-induced hearing impairment. It is also highly distracting, interfering with speech communication and leisure time relaxation. And while this doesn't drive you mad in the medical sense, it is intensely annoying and can lead to mental health problems. Also, noise, whether you work in a place where loud machinery is operating or not, can have an effect on performance at work. Though in itself not a health matter, this can lead to other problems.
In small doses, stress can have quite a positive effect. It can make you feel more alive, even exhilarated. I suppose everyone has a set level at which stress becomes unbearable, at which point they cease to function properly. I suppose, too, that it's possible for someone to train themselves to be able to take higher levels of stress by repeatedly putting themselves in a stressful situation to build up a tolerance for stress. Indeed, some jobs absolutely require this. But stress is a fact of life for all of us, and, as the figures show, its effect is largely negative. Each year, about 6 million people in Britain consult their doctors because they feel stress or anxiety, and it is estimated that at least another 6 million suffer from stress-related illness but do not seek medical advice. Long working hours, fear of losing their jobs, the difficult journey to and from work in crowded trains and buses all contribute to increased levels of stress. Then there are domestic problems, such as a large mortgage on the house, children who want to drop out of school and join rock bands, not enough time to spare to be with the family.
Research suggests ADHD is 3 to 4 times more likely to be detected in childhood in boys, as they tend to exhibit more disruptive behaviours. The symptoms in girls tend to be more subtle, less hyperactive, more inattentive. The diagnosis gap between males and females appears to shrink in adulthood, but psychologists say the bias can remain. The ADHD Foundation says increased awareness is needed in health and educational settings about how the condition can present differently. A late diagnosis can negatively impact on relationships, careers and mental health. In England, NICE guidance has been updated to make it easier for doctors to detect women and girls with ADHD. Work to improve neurodevelopmental services is underway in Scotland and Wales, but there are currently no dedicated services for adults with ADHD in Northern Ireland.